Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
And my name's Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go, Josh. It's been a minute.
It has. It seems like we always do this. It's like it's been up and down recently, but you know, we're back. And I'm excited about talking about this movie. This is the new Alex Garland movie, which we talked about an Alex Garland movie last year. We talked about Civil War. But this one is a little bit different in that he co-directed and co-wrote it with a retired Navy SEAL named Ray Mendoza, and it's about something that actually happened in his life. It's a kind of a retelling of events that happened in Ramadi, Iraq in 2006. So that to me was kind of interesting, and the way that I saw some of the shots in the trailer, I was like, all right, I'm interested in this because it didn't seem like a quote unquote war movie, and after seeing it, I would definitely agree with that assessment. I don't think this is a war movie in that it is trying to come down on one side or the other. I've got Paths of Glory above me here, which is definitely a war movie, and it's an anti-war movie. And there's other movies that are pro-war movies. A lot of John Wayne movies may be pro-war movies, but this movie is kind of like we're so insular and inside of this one squad, this one Navy SEAL platoon, and we don't really get out very much. And so we're kind of living it with them. And so that was the part that got me excited about it, because I'm kind of done with the whole like politics thing as far as when it comes to movies. I don't have a problem with movies coming down on one side or the other on something, but I'm more interested in the stories and in the emotions and in the actions of movies. And that this definitely delivered for me. What about you?
No, I agree 100%. Podcast done. Yeah. No, I did not know what I was getting myself into. And in the first 10 minutes, I kind of figured it out very quickly. And I was like, everything's so quiet. Nothing's happening. But
there's no score.
There's no score. There's nothing happening. And that is intriguing to me. I was like, you're setting up a war movie in quiet, in silence. And I was like, oh, wait, this is a slice of life movie. And this is just this mission. And as soon as I realized, first of all, I was proud of myself. I was like, I figured it out. But then I was like, oh, I'm locked now, because this is not going to be your traditional war movie. And I think that the term war movie is what should be emphasized. What you're saying when you were like, this is not a war movie. Of course, it's a movie about a war. It's a movie about a military operation in a war zone. But that's it. And that's refreshing, strange term to be using to say about war films, because you're right. Saving Private Ryan, Paths of Glory, all of those are traditional war films. And I have not a problem with any of those. I like a lot of those movies. This one, I was surprised that this was Alex Garland, because he always has a little bit of supernatural. He has some kind of message. He has some kind of tone. Even Civil War, even though it's reality-based fantasy, which I hope it stays reality-based fantasy, because I don't have a problem with politicizing something or coming down on one view or the other, one side or the other. I have no problem with that. I actually challenge myself to watch something that I know that might be against something I believe, just to see the other side. That said, I was like, where is the strangeness to this movie? It's not there. And that has to be applauded. This is just it's almost a documentary. It's almost the most realistic documentary of a military mission that you're ever going to be involved in. It is sharp. It is scary. And the scary part is 15 minutes into it, still nothing happens. And you're like, this is not good. And the fact that they're so calm and yet so on the edge at the same time. And the thing I love the most about it, we can get to it maybe a little bit later in more of a descriptive way, but the narrative is so simple that the character's actions are the character development. There's not a lot of, oh, you're married to so-and-so. Don't you have 3 kids? Oh, yeah, but I started school late. None of that's there. It's all about, oh, the new guy. And you instantaneously know who that character is.
Yeah, new guy energy.
Yeah, new guy energy. Right, exactly.
Yeah. But you're right. They don't pander to the audience either. They're not saying like, okay, let's explain to you, how big a platoon is. Let's explain to you that like this is, the team alpha and there's another team that's, let's explain to you what the comms guy does. Let's explain to you the hierarchy, the chain of command. They don't do any of that.
Nope.
They just drop you in. They don't pander to the audience. And the thing that it reminded me of the most was a documentary. Have you seen Restrepo? It was a 2010 documentary. It's about a couple of guys, a reporter and photographer. Sebastian Younger, I think, was the reporter, and then Tim Hetherington was the photographer, and they both like were embedded in I think they were embedded in Afghanistan, I believe. But yes, they were. So, but it was the same kind of a thing where you're like just with these guys, and you're with these guys for a long time, and you get to see the highs and the lows, and you get to see the firefights, and you get to see the guys just sitting around, slapping flies out of their face. And like this is essentially that same thing where, especially like you said at the beginning, well, other than the music video at the very beginning,
the tag or
that little like them getting ready to deploy or getting ready to go out into the field for this particular mission. But once they're on the mission, you're kind of like lulled into a sense of, wow, this is kind of boring, quote unquote, because nothing's happened in the last 10 minutes. And I did look down at my watch when the big thing happens, about a third of the movie, and it's almost exactly a third of the movie in. So, I mean, if we're trying to do like act breaks or act structures, which I don't think they really were, then it does line up where you have three kind of like individual chunks that are separated by transition, like by very stark transitions. So, but that first chunk is, like you said, really plaintive, and it does lull you to sleep essentially. And for me, because I'm not a soldier, I have not been in those situations. The intensity, especially that the sniper had, who was calling things out, was so intense. And I was like, chill, dude, like chill it out, man, because you are really tense. And of course, there was a reason to be tense, and that's why he was tense, and that's why they need to trade back and forth and all that stuff. So I could definitely like feel that tension.
Well, I was wondering, I won't go into the irritating guy who's in the movie with us, whole nother subject, but
I had the movie theater by myself.
I would have loved it.
It was amazing.
There was only
because it was loud, and it was just like,
I'll bet it was great. And also, I just moved, and I had to move twice, but that's okay. People are they're in their own world. What the opening, if you want to call it the first act, without the overture, the dance video overture thing, the bonding that sets up, that they're all friends, and that they're all
they're more than friends. They're dependent on each other for their lives.
As soon as friends came out, that was huge. The wrong term. Absolutely. So you can act a fool in front of a person like that and get all goofy and get all jiggy with it. I can't believe I just said that. And so if you want to call the first act, what it did for me was it engaged me into listening, because I was like, okay, this is purposeful. And I think, unfortunately, because of the world we live in nowadays, because of these things, people are so scatterbrained with what they're doing that they think that that's boring. And in my opinion, the opposite is true. When something becomes so quiet, I'm like, they want you to listen to what these little details are. And not that any of those details were relevant to anything, really. They're not, unless you understand that lingo, unless you understand the mission, unless you understand what these people go through on a regular basis, what these soldiers go through on a regular basis. But what it did was show you, hurry up and wait. You have a mission. You have something that you have to take care of. He misses something, so that ratcheted up the tension. But the actual just waiting around thing was kind of getting me a little bit. I was like, okay, I don't need something to happen because I'm bored. I need something to happen because I'm so on edge right now. And I was like, dude, get up and stretch. You're driving me crazy in that position. And then finally he got up and he was like, I got to stretch. And I was like, it took you long enough. I would have done that 25 minutes ago. How could you possibly lay like that?
Did you see Shogun? Did you see that show?
No, I haven't.
I haven't watched the
actor.
I will watch it, but he was one of the main characters, I think, in Shogun. So
he's a star.
Is he?
He's a star. Whatever.
He reminded me of like Tom Hardy-ish kind of a thing.
I like him.
But
I like him. There's something about that guy who is
his name's Cosmo Jarvis.
Yeah. Great name. Come on. That's a great name. He's a very good looking guy, but non-traditionally good looking. You know what I mean? And I like that. I like when somebody is so true to themselves that you see their beauty because they're true to themselves. And there is a focus and a comprehension he has as an actor without saying a word. And the right movie will put him, not to say that that's the goal, but the right movie, just like we talked about Joseph Quinn years ago. Do you remember when we first talked about him?
Yeah.
Do you remember what I saw him in?
Was it? Oh no, I don't know. I don't remember.
I saw him in the play Mosquito at the National Theater on the National.
Really?
Yes, with Olivia Colman.
Gotcha.
And I was like, who's that kid? That kid is, whatever he's going to do next, he's going to be a star. And now
we've basically talked about him every year for the last couple of years because he was in Quiet Place Quiet Place.
So good. Yeah.
The first one?
Yeah.
Part one? I don't know, just got
Day one.
No, Quiet Place.
Day one.
What was it? Day one. That's right.
Yeah.
Can't be part one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounded right. It sounded like there was something. It's like that last piece of the puzzle. You're like, I'm going to fit it in there. It's not the right piece. You need the other one.
Didn't work. Well, so Cosmo Jarvis, I just looked up, is in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey next year. So, along with everybody and their mother.
Watch him be the standout that gets the Oscar nomination. Watch. He's got something. And so does Kit Connor, the newbie guy. He's on Heartstoppers, and something about that show, I don't know if you've ever heard anything about it. Something about it, it's sweet. It's just gentle and kind and funny and nerve-wracking, and it's just a teen angst thing, but it's different than what you're expecting it to be. At the same time, it's exactly what you're expecting it to be, and he's one of the stars. And I was like, that kid's got something too.
Well, the whole cast. I mean, like even the guy playing Ray Mendoza he's played by DeFaro Wunati, who I've seen in Reservation Dogs.
Right, I haven't seen that yet.
And that's so great. It's such a good show.
That's what I keep hearing.
Yeah,
it's
so good.
Michael Gandolfini has turned himself into an actor. So good for him. And I love the fact that he has a little bit of a lisp, and it's not inhibiting him at all. And that actually adds to me wanting to listen to him. There's a quality about the way that he speaks that's very intriguing to me. And he's the communicator in the movie. He's the one who relays everything to, I guess, I don't know the terms.
Yeah, to the eye in the sky, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to say mission control because I don't know the terms. But yet Alex Garland and the other gentleman, they cast a guy with a little bit of a lisp as the communicator. That to me is truth. That to me is real. That to me is the human being who plays this role has a little bit of an impediment that most people might not think is something a communicator in that position should have, but he's a human being. He's a young kid. He's good at what he does. That's all that matters. And I love that.
The cast is pretty stacked with people, and Will Poulter kind of plays the main. I mean, I know that it's like Joseph Quinn and Will Poulter are kind of like they're both the commanding officers of their squads within that group, but definitely Will Poulter is the kind of head. And we can start getting into spoilers, I think, because once we start getting into it, we'll talk a little bit more. But so I'd say spoilers from now on. But from what I've read, this is pretty much like straight up memories of each of these people in this situation being told, and Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza are trying to honor those memories as truthfully as possible. So they're not really trying to make things happen that didn't happen. But the fact that Eric, the primary, like the commanding officer within that group, at some point says like, I am messed up. I need you to take over. That right there is, I mean, that tells you there's so many things in this movie that seem to me to be true to life because they're messy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about, like, I mean, my dad was in the military, you know, your family has been in the military. And so the biggest thing about the military is chain of command, and the military doesn't work without chain of command. You can't question. I have to deal with this at work. You know, I'm a manager and I'm not like the big boss guy, but you know, I'm someone who has the ability to say like, all right, here's what we're going to do. You go do that, you go do that, you go do that. And in my world, I can have, you know, people be like, well, what if we did this? What if I did this? And it's like, guess what? We don't have time because you have to do that and he has to do that and they have to do that. So the fact that like, in my work and in most people's work, and I understand that, there is the opportunity and the impetus to push back. Whereas in the military, the moment you push back, that's it. Not only are you risking your life, you're risking everybody else's life. So the fact that they're able to still work within that format and still work within that structure, but then at the same time understand that like the best, I mean, Will Poulter's character understood that the best thing for his squad, for his group, was for him to not be the one calling the shots at that moment. And that right there, I mean, that takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of, you know, just pragmatism and recognizing this is what needs to happen. And that is a leader move. That's definitely a move that a leader would make. So that right there was really cool. And then the other thing that just got me, and I'm sure this has happened in the military, I don't know if it was true or not, but my guess is that it probably was that, you know, later on in the movie when James Melton's group comes in, I think they were called not Alpha, but I think Bravo.
Charles.
Charles. Okay.
Charles Melton. James.
Charles Melton. Yeah. What did I say?
James.
I went to school with a guy named James Melton.
There he is. Hey, James, what's up, buddy?
But yeah, he did like theater actually. So yeah, but anyway, so Charles Melton, when Charles Melton comes in with his squad, then he ends up telling his communications guys, he's like, they're not going to give us the Bradleys. They're not going to bring the tanks back to get our guys. And he's like, guess what? Act like the commanding officer.
Yeah.
Act like the general.
Yeah.
And that right there is something that it gets the job done, but it's not protocol. But in that moment, at that time, he made that difficult decision.
Well, they were waiting for that guy. It wasn't like that guy was not going to approve it, or they were waiting and they couldn't wait any longer.
Yep. Yeah. He might not have approved it, but it doesn't matter. It's a time crunch, and it's a thing where the fact that the IED, which we haven't talked about yet, but the fact that the IED caused so much damage, not only did it kill a translator and severely wound multiple other soldiers, and they had casualties in the Bradley at the time because they opened up the back of the Bradley, the gate of the Bradley, and then that IED went off. So I mean, that's the part that shocked me the most. I mean, I knew something was going to happen, but it's that we talk about all the time, like it's that like the spring is being wound and you just keep winding the spring, you don't know when it's going to break, but it broke. It exploded when that happened, and I was like ready for it, but not ready for it. So it was like I said, it was so loud, and there's no score, so we're back into this, like, you know, in a horror movie, you got somebody walking up the stairs and they look around the corner and the strings are going and everything's building, and you know, you're ready for it. Like, you just aren't ready for it in this movie. It's too shocking. And then of course they do that. Did it bother you that they did the dropping of the audio and the
no,
tinnitus?
That's exactly what I was expecting them to do.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. There were things that if they didn't happen, I was going to react that way. If Joseph Quindon starts screaming bloody murder there was one moment I almost was like, "Wah!" mad just because somebody needed to scream. And then he does, and then he doesn't stop. And when they get the morphine, I'm like, give him more. I know they're going to need more. Give him load them up, like knock them out. And then they're like, we need more. I was like, yep, thank you. So
when they brought the Cosmo Jarvis guy in, like, I thought he was dead.
Yeah, I thought he was dead too.
Okay, so is that what we're supposed to expect?
Yeah,
is that what we're supposed
I think so. And because he was such a strong character already, and they all are, I thought that was going to be the character we felt the worst for. Tough all the way around. No other way to put it. Insurmountable violence around you. I can't imagine being in that situation, but that guy dying and being so charismatic, I thought was going to be a thing. When they brought him back, I was like, not relieved. In a way, I was kind of like, oh, I feel bad for the fact that he's alive, actually, because give him morphine.
And I was so down, we see so many movies, and I was so down the road of like, oh my God, Michael Gandolfini is just trying to put a tourniquet on a leg that will never be back. Ooh. And trying to stop bleeding that I don't even see happening. So what is he doing? He's essentially wasting his time is what I thought. And I just felt really bad for him. I mean, I'd already obviously like gone through the like, oh my God, this guy, dies because of this and it's so horrible. But I was in the process of feeling for that character when, the Cosmo Jarvis guy pops up and you're just like, oh my God, what are the chances? Also, the fact that he did spend all that time getting him back in was like, you wouldn't want him. Could you imagine him popping up in the street like that? I mean, you're really done for at that point.
Well, they wouldn't have left him there. They left the translator, half of the translator.
Well,
they also picked up body parts too. So they picked up what they could pick up. So I think they picked up what and also, regardless.
It was half a translator. It was bad. It was
terrible.
It's great practical effects.
Really
the whole
great.
Movie
horrible. The whole
really great practical
that whole
effects,
streak of the insides of the. It was just. I mean, it was.
It was Saving Private Ryan. I mean, it was
realistic to the point of, I'm glad. So far in my life, I've never been through anything like that.
Yeah, me too.
And I can't imagine what people who serve our country go through. I just can't. And it's good to be practical about those effects, because that is what they go through, and we should know that, and we should have an appreciation of. I don't even know if that's the word for it. Well, we should have an understanding and we should know.
We should have empathy for their situation and as much as we can. But I think the bigger thing is that, I mean, the fact that you've got Ray Mendoza on set every day, who was a co-writer and is actually co-directing the movie, and it has direct input on what it looks like. They also brought in a lot of his team members during the shooting of the movie, which had to be really difficult for a lot. I mean, we see it at the end of the movie in the post-credits stuff, but the fact that those guys were there, and it's such, I mean, I know it's not going to look exactly the same, but it's enough of a recreation that there had to be times when it was probably way overwhelming. But the fact that they were there, that they could say, no, this is how it should look. This is how you hold the weapon. This is how you reload. This is how you go around a corner. This is how you stack up against each other. All of that stuff. I mean, because it sounds like from what they were saying in some of the interviews I was reading, they were very sensitive about ex-military and current military saying, you decided to tell this story, but you didn't do the basics of making sure that the protocol was correct and the methodology of what these soldiers were doing was correct. And that's what they were really trying to get, not only the realism based on what actually happened in Ramadi at that point, but also each individual action, making sure that it was believable, not only to people like me and you, but people who have actually done it before. So it's It's a tall order, but I mean, they had the right people in place. So I think
Yeah,
that's
I often hear
honorable.
people, sorry if I interrupted you. I often
No.
hear real emergency room doctors talk about TV shows and movies, and they go, it's not that they didn't get it right, they just got it out of order. There's a certain protocol. There's a certain order that we do certain things have to happen first before that happens, and blah blah blah. Of course, it's a drama, it's a it's a heart-pounding scene, so they're going straight for whatever the thing that's going to get your blood going, no pun intended. So I wonder, I didn't think about that until you just were talking there, that I wonder how many of them sat through the movie, how many of the people who were in that situation actually sat through the movie, because that seems like that's bizarre. Like Sing Sing, I don't know why that just came to my mind. So the people who are in prison who see that movie, they're living a hard life, and they've done a spectacular thing and it's been turned into a movie. But those situations aren't, well, they're life-threatening on some level in certain circumstances, but the actual theater part and the actual production and all the stuff those men go through on a daily basis, that's probably why they had the real guy say the thing about we come in here for a couple hours a day and we forget about what's out there. So that's probably why they had that guy do that scene. But that's different. That's, you're not watching your buddy blow up again. You're not watching your buddy lose his legs again. You're not watching your buddy lose his life. And you're not watching the interpreter splattered all over the street. No disrespect. I wonder what that would be like to actually see it. It would be so weird.
It's probably difficult because I'm sure that they were proud that they were able to help each other get out of a really difficult situation, but at the same time they may have spent a lot of time dealing with the memories of that and dealing with the repercussions of going through something like that. So it may not be for them, but I mean, from what I've read and what I've seen in the interviews and stuff that they've had, is that like there were multiple times when things got overwhelming or Ray Mendoza teared up or whatever, and I'm sure that was similar for those other things, which is probably good that he had Alex Garland and all the other crew there to be able to keep going, because I think they shot this very quickly.
Yeah,
and
it seems
and
like it.
Yeah, and they were able to. They also shot it chronologically, which makes sense because you're doing a lot of destructive things, and so you want to make those destructive things within the timeline, and it probably helps with continuity as far as like, oh, there's blood all over the floor. Well, we don't have to clean that up and then reset and all that stuff too, but just from a practicality standpoint. But I think that it probably also helped the actors, I would think. I mean, wouldn't you think it would help the actors? But you're saying like if they're like professional enough, that probably wouldn't matter.
Well, no, I just I don't know. I have no idea. Chronologically is never how you rehearse a play until you actually put it up. And then that's weird that it's chronological. And then you have to get used to that again. So you're usually rehearsing this scene, and this scene. If you're talking about the play I just directed, the cast was so large that we hardly ever had, we had to schedule certain things. So we had the first scene, and then we had the third scene of the third act. And none of those people were in the same scenes, and some of the people were. And
so you would stack them. So it's like every scene with one of the great, with the two grandmas
on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or whatever it may be, until the very end, of course, where it becomes tech and then running it. And the one thing that we kept hearing from the actors is, we want to run the whole thing. We want to run the whole thing. And I was okay with that, but the schedule, we were like, listen, this is all the conflicts that we have. And I say we, but Heather really did all of that stuff. She's a genius with that scheduling stuff, and she's really good at that part. She's really good at everything, but she's really great at that. And so we would be like, well, we can do a run through on Friday, but so can't be here. It's one of their dark days. And so it's one of those days they requested off. And actually, I was kind of glad about that, because I thought if you can get the scene that happens here right, it doesn't matter what happens before or after it, that will come. That transition into that will come. Sure, you're going to have to know where to be, where to go, where to, that kind of stuff. But you're already rehearsing, going backstage during that scene. You just have to come back around when your next scene is ready. That's not rehearsed until next Tuesday. And so it's never been chronological. I've never been in a play that has rehearsed one scene after the next, after the next, after the next, the whole entire time. It just doesn't happen that way. It just doesn't. And it also, you can't, because what if one of the scenes you think is going to be more difficult goes really well, and the one scene that you think is going to go really well doesn't? So you have to work on the one that doesn't. And
you could also be in a situation where you never get to the end of the play.
That's true.
that would be scary.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Wow, that just made my heart jump. But no, yeah,
that'd be crazy.
I just am used to that. I'm used to scene work. I mean, when you audition for something, they don't give you the whole play in chronological order and go. They go, here's the scene, and you don't even know what happens before, during, or after. That's why a craft, an actual technique, is a good thing, in my opinion, because if you believe the philosophy I believe, and we've talked about this a million times before about the intention, that I want something from you, you want something from me, that causes a conflict, we need to have a resolution, that's what solves the problem. But my want from you, I want to manipulate you in order for you to give me all your money, whatever it is. I want to seduce you because whatever. I want to blame you. There are certain verbs you can play all the time, whether or not it's right for the scene or not. Let's say I play to blame. I'm blaming you for my girlfriend's death, whatever. That could be completely wrong for the scene, but it won't look like you're a bad actor. It'll look like you made the wrong choice, but it won't be unintentional. It won't lack substance.
Okay, so then that brings up an actual interesting question for me then, because when Michael Gandolfini was trying to fix Cosmo Jarvis and trying to get him all squared away, and I thought he was dead. As a moviegoer, my interpretation of the scene was that this is someone who has not understood, he has not accepted reality. Reality is that a guy on his team just died, and he has not accepted that he is dead. So he's doing all the things that he would do for someone who's still alive. He's talking to him, making sure that he's okay, and doing all, putting tourniquets on, doing all the stuff, cutting his pants open to allow him access, all that stuff. And that was the intent. I'm assuming that was the intention that the actor was playing. But it probably doesn't matter. That's how I interpreted it.
That's all that matters.
So that's all that matters.
In my opinion, that's all that matters. Now, there are scenes...
Because he did actually think that he was alive, and he was alive.
Yeah.
So my interpretation of the scene was actually incorrect for what the scene was, but that was still engaging to me, I guess.
Yeah, but we're talking about three separate things. Okay. We're talking about what the narrative was written as, meaning what actually happened in life. Okay, so when they interpreted that into the screenplay, that was character A puts pressure. Character B lies there still not alive, or is he alive? Seemingly dead. Smoke billows in, blah, 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 blah. And then I don't know what Michael Gandolfini's intention was. Some actors work that way, some actors don't. And I believe whatever works for you. And I also believe that sometimes you just instinctually know what to do. Not me, but most people. There are some people who just know what to do. I rely on, there are plays that I've done that I just have to do all that stuff. It just makes me feel at ease. Well, it makes me not go over the cliff. I'm on the edge the whole time. But so I don't know what the strong enough verb is to facilitate his life, to expedite the medical practices, I don't know what the active verb would be, but he is doing something of an active action to keep that guy alive. And to keep the guy alive is not an active enough verb, a strong enough verb, but it is a verb, and it is to keep somebody alive is an actionable verb. You can play
it's something to play.
You can play that action. You can't play, I wish he's alive, or I hope he doesn't die, or I think he's breathing. You can't, it just doesn't work that way. At least not for me. And I believe most of the great actors who can just do it, they don't maybe articulate it that way, but it's still the same thing in my opinion. So actually for him to facilitate his life, to keep him alive, to coordinate the efforts to make sure we do everything that is protocol, whatever that verb is. Whether or not you believed that the guy was alive didn't matter. Michael Gandolfini's character believed the guy was alive, or he believed he had to do this, and this, because if he is alive and he doesn't do all of this and then he dies, that's way worse than pretending to yourself, giving yourself the delusion that somebody's alive when you looking at a person going, no, this person's not alive. You know,
and that's the difference between a soldier and like me, because the soldier was trained. This is what you do. You know, one of your guys is injured. Unless there is something that is clear that he is dead, if there's a whiff of a pulse, or even if you can't get to where you can get a pulse, assume he is alive. I'm sure that's all in the training, but they didn't have to explain that to us.
No, but also it's not Michael Gandolfini's character's choice to decide that guy's dead.
That's true.
It's somebody else's choice to decide that.
Like you need to do something else, but instead they didn't say that. They said you work on him. You work on him. You know, Ray worked on
you work on
the
him,
other guy.
even though he's dead. It was you work on him. Period.
Yeah.
And we keep calling Michael Gandolfini,
well,
Lieutenant McDonald.
Yes.
So it wasn't Lieutenant McDonald's choice. He was doing what he was told, and you talked about it in the beginning of the podcast about how chain of command. So until he's tapped on the shoulder and said, yeah, I think he's gone, let's call it. But that would have probably been somebody else's call also. It would have been Will Poulter's or whoever took over.
And they're so connected to where like the guy playing Ray DeFaro Wunati, when he's working on Joseph Quinn, when he's working on Sam, the Sam character, he kind of like, he's like putting pressure on and doing the gauze and starting the tourniquet, but he couldn't actually get the tourniquet on because he just kind of like spaced out. He just went away multiple times. And during those times, other people could kind of see what was happening, and they would jump in and help or facilitate. But I mean, that's the director. Like, he's playing the director who was in that situation. So that right there is like, I mean, you know that is something that definitely happened, and he has the ability to translate that, figure out how to translate that into, you know, what's going on orally, what's going on, you know, in his demeanor, and how is that manifesting. And it just got to the point where he just like dissociated and went away. And then came back.
Some might ask what took him so long.
Well,
you know, to disassociate. How any of them stay in that moment is
training. I think it's training.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think
you do it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And then when it's the hardest, you lean on those 1,000 times to get you through.
And I know that to compare it to acting is so superficial, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking. You do something so much, you train yourself to go, oh, when I walk in, I know this is a weird comparison. I don't mean to show any disrespect to the situation, but it just kind of, we're talking about the 2-in-1 type of thing. When you walk into an audition and you have no idea what's on that page, and you have no idea, I just read this, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this word right. Thank God for smartphones. Thank God for earbuds. Because you can plug that right in and be like, oh, that's how you say that. You still get it wrong 90% of the time for not practicing. At least I do. But you click into whatever verb that you think will work. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And sometimes it's just pure instinct. There are things that have happened to me that I don't even remember doing until afterwards. And somebody goes, did you knock that bottle over and catch it? Take a drink and put it back on that bar? And I go, yeah, I think I did. But I do not remember doing that at all. I mean, that literally happened to me. So I think you're right. I think the training, and for more of a severe situation, obviously this situation is, but that training, just like those acting craft techniques, falter too, because that's why Will Poulter was like, yeah, I'm tapping out. And I think that he is the hero of the movie. If there's a hero, they're all heroes.
They're all heroes.
Yeah, absolutely. But he is the most mature, he's the smartest one. Not the smartest, but he is the smartest for that moment, because he knew, like you said earlier, he had to take himself out of it. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to show a character to do, because it was instinctually what I was thinking. Yeah. When he screamed, when Joseph Quinn screamed, I was like, yep, I needed that. When Will Poulter was like, you could tell he's looking around. And at first I was like, is he trying to figure out what to do next? He hasn't been trying to figure out what to do next this whole, he's known every single moment what to do. He's been in command. He doesn't know what to do. He's out of it. He is losing something that he had earlier. And I was like, he should just say that. And then he did. And I was like, okay. Yeah. So let me ask you a kind of graphic question. When they were originally ripping that guy's pants open and trying to figure out where all the blood and all of the wounds were coming from, did we happen to see parts of the human body that we would probably...
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless they have something else like in there, something else stored in there or something, but...
Well, that's a joke waiting to happen. But no, I thought that was... See, I think that's brave. I think that's interesting. Brave is probably not the word, because we've talked about this a gazillion times with sex scenes where people are hiding certain body parts because of, they don't want to show, and they take certain angles, and you're like, that's unnatural. But when you rip the pants the way they were ripping the pants, and there was all of the mess that was all the mess, you probably would see what we saw. And so I was like, okay, that those kind of details to me.
But did it take you out though?
No.
Like, did it take you out of the movie?
Well,
okay.
I mean,
it was noticeable though.
I wasn't expecting to.
So what would take you out of the movie is them like ripping the pants perfectly and folding them over in a way such that nothing would show. Is that?
Yeah, that would bother me way more. And I think that's, with all due respect to America, I love this country. Don't get me wrong. We are a little prudish when it comes to certain things, and we're not used to seeing male parts in movies, even to this day. I mean, it's really changed a whole lot. But if that was a female and they had to rip her top off, you would see what you would. I mean, you've seen it a million times in movies. You just do. And actually, what it really does for me is it makes it so reality based. It doesn't pull me out. I want to pull myself out because it's so real. I don't want to deal with it. I don't. Did you ever see The Impossible with Naomi?
And that was like Tom Holland's one of his first movies. I never saw it.
He's so good.
I heard it was pretty harrowing.
He's so good in it. So is Ewan McGregor. She got an Oscar nomination, deservedly so. Well, there's a scene where she's in the water and she's wearing a tank top, and she has accidentally, of course, obviously, because she's in a big ass tsunami. Yeah. She exposes her breast, and it's devastating because this is a private area, and this is being exposed not for any other reason other than this devastating situation. So I felt kind of the same way. I just went into a denial thing in my mind that I didn't see it because I didn't want to deal with the ramifications of what that might mean. Like, I thought they were going to say something later on that he's not be able to have kids or something like that.
Oh God.
And I'm glad that it was as quick and as subtle as it was, because I thought it was real. So anyway.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Now, when the Charles Melton crew comes in, right before that, we get kind of like an extended scene. It's a couple minutes long where we see that like the FLIR camera, the kind of like black and white camera that's like heat mapped, and anybody who's a person is hotter and whiter than the buildings and stuff. We kind of get that scene, and you kind of, to me at least, as an engineer, it helps me to understand like where things are and where people are and how close they actually were the whole time. Like, that other squad was very close to them the whole time. And the fact that it took them that long to get to Alpha Team, I mean, that just is kind of amazing. And then to see how much fire they took just to get there. and the coordination that was necessary with the planes.
That's crazy. Those sequences are crazy. Yeah. You know, it's so what's the word I'm looking for? It's so, human beings are so, they're clever. Like that thought that plane jet would be able to do that.
Show of force.
Yeah. I just would not. I mean, my brother's a fighter pilot, you know, in the Air Force, or was, or still is actually, a brigadier general now. But anyway, so he probably would have been like, oh, that's what they're going to do. Because obviously that's what he would have done.
I had a lot of respect that they didn't cut away from those guys when they did those show of force, because the instinct as a filmmaker, I would think, would be to, let's show the enemy, let's show the Iraqi fighters getting knocked off their butts and getting knocked into walls and pushed back into the buildings, and, you know, losing their guns, and like, let's show that, because that's kind of what the point is. The point is to shock and to disorient you right before we do a maneuver, you know, but they didn't do that. And that's because that was the rules that were in place for this movie. It would have gone against those rules.
Yeah.
Because we're focused on the situation in this house, the situation with this platoon. We're focused on them. So,
well, it would become a war movie, not a war documentary movie, for however we want to call it. Although, you know, people flying up against the house and flying back down, it's all very interesting how that all works. I guess what's the word I'm looking for?
Ingenuity.
Like, who thought of that? Like, that's a way I would have never even. It would not even have come even close to me thinking about.
The planes are in the sky anyway. They're flying around anyway.
Yeah. And there's not much more they can do.
Yep.
So yeah, but I would have thought that they would have come low and started firing on people and stuff like that. But that's not what they did. I thought that was an interesting aspect that I didn't know existed on any level. And also, you're talking about the rules. It not only would have broke the war movie rule that they had set up, but the movie was in that block, that street, that house, those tops of those houses across the way, those people in that area. That's why when you see the black and white footage and you see the other troops coming in, you're like, oh my gosh, they were right there the whole time. And the fact that we have that technology and that we can just see people and there's really nowhere to hide is crazy. It's just crazy. And the fact that we have to use all of this in our existence is just mind-boggling.
That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, it is.
And then as far as like the end, or closer to the end, when a second platoon comes in, and then they coordinate all of that. The fact that they decided to fire on the top of their own building to try to clear out that area, that's also an extreme choice. I mean, there's a lot of risk associated with that, but I'm sure that they felt that was one of the only options. Like, and I don't know, that's where, like, we don't know enough about their training. There's no like backstory. There's no, like, I don't know if that was an ingenious plan by those platoon leaders, by those commanding officers, or if it was something that was trained, that they were trained to do, you know.
Probably a combination of all of the above. They probably learned it. They probably, just like they learned what they did with the jets, they learned it somewhere. They thought of it. They tried it. It worked. And, you know, I guess it's, you know, you have to get them out of there. And what are you going to do? So we have to take that chance. The roof could collapse. They could end up friendly firing on people, but the chances of getting them out of there were a higher stake than doing that. Yeah, that's
the only part that's the only part, and this is the only thing I'm going to say that's really kind of like, you know, a little bit of it didn't work as much for me, as when they did fire on the upper floor. You could tell that there was a lot of CG smoke and CG explosions up there, that because they weren't able to really damage that building. I don't think they were able to damage that building, you know, physically. So I kind of saw a little bit of that, and that wasn't, I don't know. It's kind of like, oh man, it did kind of take me out of it a little bit at that point. But by the time we get to the very end, when they get into the Bradleys and go away, I read that they were going to do a medevac type of a scene, to let the audience know that these guys got away, they got to a hospital, they got medevaced to Baghdad or wherever, and they cut it. So yeah,
I'm glad they cut it. You don't need it. All you need is exactly what they kept going throughout the whole entire movie. When is somebody going to scream? There's Joseph Quinn screaming. When are we going to do this? Oh, there it is. When is Will Poulter? There it is. Shut that door. When they finally because that door stays open significantly for a period of time. And I'm screaming to myself, shut the door. And so if they hadn't shown the real footage and the actual on-set footage, which I loved that they did. But my question is, why did they block out
they're currently Navy SEALs still.
Okay, so that's a secret thing, or
yes, so they could be deployed. Yeah, they could be deployed, and they may also be deployed in kind of like an undercover type thing, or maybe intermingling with people, and they don't want their face to be
it was a lot of them. There was a lot of them.
There was a lot of. I mean, I think the guys that have either retired or have moved on to because Ray Mendoza was a consultant on Civil War. Did a lot of the stuff at the end with the White House when they were breaching the White House.
He's been on a few movies.
Yeah. So he's been around, and I think he's been out of the Navy SEALs for a little while, but there's other people who are still there or don't want their face to be on a movie. I get that too.
Or it might be they just never signed over. They just didn't sign the waiver that they could use their likeness.
Sure, that's fine too. I don't know if there was anybody who I don't know. I didn't read about anybody who was like, I can't believe they made this movie or whatever.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, it's probably better to err on the side of caution and don't put somebody's face on a big, huge movie screen if they're not giving you the explicit go ahead to do that.
Well, it's respect.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was, the cast of Chicago from the West End and London, and she didn't want to be presented because she didn't get the residuals, whatever the reason, that's okay. Calm down. But this is real people in real situations. The respect should be there to allow them to choose one way or another. And
totally.
And I believe that it's probably a combination of everything we just talked about. It's probably like some people are still in the military. And also, what about that person who just doesn't want to have to talk about it? Doesn't want, I saw your picture in that movie. Was that you? Yeah, I don't want to. No.
Not right now.
Yeah. Or ever.
Or ever. Yes. All right. Well, you got anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. And you can go to YouTube. We've got a video version of the podcast on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast. I'll see you next time.